Everybody, welcome back to this TT-02 Sand Shaker build series. And today we're going to be working on the electronics. First thing with the electronics is always to set it up and test it out before you put it into the body. So let's go ahead and do that first. I have my receiver here. This is coming from the FlySky GT-3B. And the servo is always in channel 1. And then I'm going to hook up the ESC to channel 2. I've already bind this ESC to the radio in a previous video. Then I'm going to connect I have a Hobbywing QuicRun 1060 here. This is pretty much the gold standard of brushed ESCs for non-crawlers. You're going to find a lot of knockoffs on eBay, Amazon for cheaper, for about $14, $15. They're just not as good, if they work at all. And they might take a month to get to you. So I always buy my Hobbywing ESCs either direct, or I go on Amazon and look for the listing that is shipping from Hobbywing Direct. They sell the 1060 for around $25 shipped directly from Hobbywing in Southern California. Since I'm also in Southern California, I get it pretty quick as well. So that's another bonus for me. Now I'm going to connect the battery. So everything's connected now. Both the ESC and the servo is connected to the receiver. The motor's connected to ESC and the battery's on. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on the transmitter. And then the power switch is over here. All right, let's go ahead and test the servo. All right, I think you can see and hear that. There we go. And then let's pay attention to the axle there. I'm going to pull the trigger forward and back. All right, now we know the electronic works. Let's go ahead and get them mounted into the chassis. Something strange about my kit, we do need to put on the servo saver and the servo horn, but unfortunately I have two of these mount plates here that is supposed to fit onto the spline of the servo, but I have both of them here. One's 24 supposedly and one's 25. One's San Juan, one's Futaba, and neither one of them would fit onto my servo here. So instead, I dug around and I found that I had this aluminum servo horn. So I'm going to go ahead and use that instead. So it turns out to be 24 tooth. And I'm going to turn the servo this way and mount it. And the electronics are still on, so I know the servo is centered. I'm going to do my best to put this straight. And there you go. Perfectly straight. And let me go ahead and tighten this side screw first. Kind of clamps it down. Now I'm going to put in the mounting screw. All right. Awesome. Everything still works. All right, I brought the manual back for part 27. We're going to be putting on the bridge, which is this piece right here, and the link. And the link has a couple pivot balls that go in, and just want to take a pair of pliers and push them through. There's one. And there's two. There we go. And so we need to find a few kind of screws. The kind that goes from the bridge to the link are these screws right here. They're MD2s. They're silver. So I'm going to put one through here and then one through the bridge. Okay, that's too tight. You want free movement. So let me back that up. Okay, that's perfect. And then we need to attach the link here onto the servo, and it's going to go this way. And it's also the same screw. Again, don't over tighten. That's probably a little too tight. Let me back it up. There you go. And so that's ready to go. And now we need to put on the two posts that mounts to the servo, and that's going to be bolted onto the chassis itself. And those are these gray pieces right here. So they're going to go on the outside of the servo on each side like this. And we're going to take these dark screws, pair them with a large washer. There's 4 washers, 2 of them are bigger, and you definitely want the bigger one. And we're going to use the upper hole on the side of the servo. Okay. And the other side. Let me grab that washer. Let me move this out of the way. Put that on there. Okay, the servo is ready to go into the chassis. Okay, I unplugged all the electronics because I need to turn the chassis over and everything will be falling around. So I'm going to set the servo down here and see if it lines up with the holes underneath. And you're going to need to look for these MA3 screws. They're flathead screws. And let me see. I think I just have it perfect right there. See if I can start it. Looks like that's working. And here's the other screw. All right. Okay, there we go. There's the servo mounted. And then we're going to mount the bridge onto the 2 steering links. And we're going to be using step screws for that. There's 2 of these, and it is recommended you put some grease here around the shoulder part so that it moves freely. And so I remember this part is a little bit tricky because the steering assembly down there isn't all that steady. So you kind of have to be careful. And you don't want to over tighten that. You want free movement as usual. And here's the other shoulder screw. Go ahead and grease this one. and put that through. All right, before I move forward, because I have everything set already, I'm just going to plug it back in, turn it back on, and just make sure the servo still works. Okay. Awesome. I have steering. Everything looks okay. Probably need to work on the trim a little bit. It looks very crooked. It's probably these links right here, but that is fixable. All right, I actually had to remount the servo. My steering alignment was so off that I had to adjust the trim to 60 degrees just to make this reasonably straight. So I took the servo out and I aligned the steering, and then I put on the link, and now it's much better. It's much straighter, and I don't have to worry about using the trim so much. But what I did have to do also was to flip this link here from behind the servo horn to the front of the servo horn so that I get a straighter alignment. It's just the nature of my servo here. I'm using a low profile servo. I think with a regular servo, a standard size servo, the servo horn would be out closer to where this bridge is, and so it would make sense that the servo horn would, the link here would actually be on the opposite side of the servo horn. So not a big deal. We improvised and we made it work. So let's go ahead and move on to the next step. So I have never done so before, but this time I want to try using the receiver box. This is going to be driven on the dirt. I plan on taking this to go bashing and also running it on a dirt track. You know, unlike the other TT-02s I have that are primarily on pavement and concrete, this actually might get quite dusty. So I do want to use this receiver box to protect this receiver. So first thing I'm going to do is tape it down into the receiver box. Like so. And then I'm going to run one wire out of each, and let me make sure these wires are straight. All right, like that. And this one from the ESC, let me make sure this wire is straight as well. And it goes straight in. It's going to have to turn once. It's going to go this way. And before I seal this up, I'm going to test it one more time. Okay, everything is working. If you also want to use the receiver box, the instructions are on page 20. Basically, it's just make sure the openings align here on this side. Make sure the wires are flat. And you're going to seal these up. Put these screws right here. And you're going to use a smaller bit Phillips head to close this up. All right, just like the servo, I actually ended up redoing everything again. I taped the receiver box down first, and I wanted to do some wire management and tuck it inside the receiver box. So when I did, I was able to curl up all the wires, have the ESC mount on top of the servo in this direction. The only thing I'm not crazy about is the switch ended up being on the opposite, coming from the opposite side, and the only place, and this being a really short wire, only place I can find to put the switch right now is right here on the side of the ESC, or I could have put it on the side right here as well. Either way, I'm not crazy about it, but it is what it is. I have everything hooked back up, turned on, and everything's still working. I have forward and reverse, and if you wanted to set that, you can actually change the jumper here. I'm going to keep this on nickel metal hydride. I'm not going to be running LiPo just yet, And then you can, but if you do, you can go ahead and move that jumper over. So read your manual for the 1060 and you'll figure that out. All right, I think the next step is to put on the motor shroud, and that's going to be right here. All right, the motor shroud is actually two pieces. It's this piece right here and also the funnel that funnels air from the front of the car into there, down into the motor, or you can just use it without the funnel and mount a fan on top, or what I prefer is actually to leave it off and let it cool by itself, or rock a heat sink. That's probably the best of all the solutions. But I'm going to build this just to the spec of the manual, and we're going to use these MD4 screws, and they're these darker ones. I'm just going to get them on there. All right, now that's on there, I'm going to go ahead and put that on and put on two screws here, one here and one over here. All right. And actually the wire management worked out pretty well. If I wanted to, I can double side tape these two wires onto the shroud here, but I'm most likely going to remove the shroud once I start racing this car. So just going to leave it like that. So we're done with the electronics. The next step is to go ahead and include the tires, mount them onto the chassis, and then work on the body. I'm going to paint it and then go ahead and mount it on. I am going, since the holes are pre-drilled in the body, I'm just going to go ahead and use the posts that are included in the kit. So with that, I hope you like this video. Please drop it a like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one.